The Wolf Wilder by Katherine Rundell. Chapter 6. Theo woke in the grey light of pre-dawn, in a cluster of wolves, wondering why it had felt as if someone had died. Then she remembered the night before, saw the soot clinging to her skin, and her arms and legs began to shake. "Mama!" she whispered. The wolves felt her move, felt, perhaps, the fear in the shiver of her skin. They leaped at her, and for a few minutes she lay in the snow and let herself be smothered in a ball of ruffled fur and wolf licks and accidental scrapes from claws. The pup tried to crawl into her ear. She closed her eyes and counted to 10, and prepared her fists and knees and heart to fight the world. When she sat up, the shivering had passed, and she saw Ilya leaning against a tree, a sack on his back, a wary expression on his face. "You!" Theo jumped to her feet. "Ilya, how did you find me?" That sounded accusatory, so she stumbled forward in an awkward hug. He winced and stood stiffly with his arms by his sides until she let go. "I followed the wolf prints," said Ilya. "Your mother told me weeks ago what to do if anything went wrong." He wore Marina's green cloak. "She said I should take it while you're dressing," he said, seeing Theo's face. "To cover my uniform." "The plan didn't work," said Theo. "It broke." "No," he said heavily. "I know, I saw. Mama swore it would be all right. We were going to run." "It would have worked, I think. I think she would have got away if they hadn't set fire to—" He seemed not to want to say, "your home." He grimaced. "It was the fire, Theo. It blocked her way out." "Is the whole house gone?" Theo tried to sound offhand. She tried not to think of the stars she had painted on the ceiling, or the marks that generations of wolves had made on the door. She failed on both counts. He nodded. "You should go. There's no point waiting here. They'll come back for you." "For me?" "Yes, you, because of what you did to Rakov." Theo tried to make her voice sound innocent. "What about him? It didn't work." The vowel sounds were those of a person who has shed blood. "It wasn't deliberate, or at least not totally deliberate." "I went back to bury Tenderfoot. Before I came here, the sergeants were whispering. They're saying you're some kind of witch child." "Because I hit someone with a ski? Witches don't use skis." Ilya shrugged. "Rakov's looking for you. He's angry and embarrassed. I think that's even more dangerous than angry." "I've got wolves. I'm not afraid of that," lied Theo. "You are, Theo, or you should be." Theo made her best, hideous face at him. She stretched her tongue to touch her nose and turned her eyelids inside out. It made her feel very slightly better, although the pup did try to bite her tongue. "None of this should have happened," she said. "All we wanted was our own lives, nothing else, just the wolves and the snow, and Mama, and books, and hot blackberry mulch to drink. We were happy, just us." Her body gave another great shiver, and she sat down among the wolves. Ilya pulled at her, tugging under her armpits. "Get up! You haven't seen what Rakov does to people. The other boys say if you cut Rakov, he bleeds snow." "No, he doesn't. I saw." She tried to smile. "You're not taking this seriously. Look, He wakes up in the night sometimes and orders us boys to light the fires. There are 24 of them, or he'll set us alight." Theo tried to shrug. "And then the orders, the oldest of the soldiers, the ones with no teeth and arthritis, to fight each other. To the death! Theo! And the other men put bets on the winner." Theo laid a hand on Black's head for comfort. "And he barricades people inside their houses and sets fire to them. He wanted you to burn to death." "Well, everyone has to learn to live with disappointment." Her smile was stiff as a rock now. "Theo, this isn't a joke." Theo stopped smiling. It had been a grim one, anyway, not worth keeping. "I know that. They have my mother." "That's what I'm saying." Ilya tugged at her sleeve. "That's why you need to go." "I know," said Theo. She wiped the ice from her eyebrows and jumped up and down. Some of the fuzziness in her head cleared. I'm ready now. So, which way are you going? I don't know, said Theo. That's the point. I don't know how we're going to find her. I don't even know where they're taking her. Ilya was staring. What? Yes, you do. I don't. They didn't give me a map. But you must know. They've taken her to Kreti prison in St. Petersburg to stand trial. Trial for what? He looked uncomfortable. You heard what General Rakov said. He said she was in defiance of the Tsar. That's treason, technically. Your mother will be sent to a camp. Camping? Theo drew her eyebrows together. Camping was not something you did in the winter, unless you enjoyed watching your toes shrivel up and fall off. A labor camp. Ilya was turning red. You know, in Siberia, like the Tsar has. I don't think she'd want that. No, said Ilya. He looked at her oddly. No, but she'll be held prison first, before trial. How long for? They can't try her before Friday. That's when the judge comes down from the Transcaspian outblast. Today's Saturday. Theo bit her lip. 6 days. And the prison? You know where it is? Everyone does. It's guarded by Imperial soldiers like me. I mean, not exactly like me. Bigger. Then it's easy. I'll go and get her. A trickle of warmth ran through Theo's insides. And you know the way? Of course I do. So you could get us there? I could, but nobody ever said anything about me coming. You're scared. She expected him to deny it, and normally a person would, but he nodded, as matter of fact as the weather. Of course I'm scared. I know Rakov. So you're not coming with me? I didn't say that. I just... Do you want me to come? What? It should have been obvious. Theo glared around the snow. Wolves are much easier to understand than people, she thought. Wolves and stars and snow. Those things made sense. Yes, of course, you idiot! She realised it was still not coming out as friendly as she'd hoped. She tried again. Please do come? Her eyes refused to meet his, so she spoke to his gold buttons. I don't want it to be just me. I've got the wolves, but I'd like someone who speaks Russian? Someone she didn't say, with a kind of bravery she'd not encountered before. A softer, unobtrusive, halting kind. But it sounded like you were angry at me. No, not angry, just scared. Theo firmly believed that if ever you told someone you were scared, sooner or later you'd have to kill him. But Ilya was different. Oh, then I'll come. Oh, obviously. Yippah! Theo clapped her hands, and he lunged sideways. Please don't hug me again. If that's what you're planning, you hug hard. Quick then! Theo covered her blush by turning to gesture at the woods. Which way? Let's go! He stared around at the snow. Well, but I only know when we get inside St. Petersburg. Theo stared at him. Truly, she thought, boys were not as good as wolves. He said, We could ask for directions if we see anyone. No, we can't. Don't you dare! We can't draw attention to ourselves now, and wolves are quite attention-seeking. But, he said, St. Petersburg is due north from Rakov's outpost, and we're close to there now, except we don't know which way is north. Theo laughed. The warmth came flooding back. Yes, we do, with a compass. I don't have a compass. Do you? We can make one. At least I can. Mama showed me once. Quick. She took one of the pins out of the bottom of her cloak. Do you have a can or a cup? I've got the bowl, a wooden one. That's perfect. And I need some water. Ilya looked around. Where from? The snow, Ilya. He looked helplessly around him.
How do I make it in the water? Warm it in your mouth, silly, like this.
She pushed a lump of snow the size of the wolf pup into her mouth, pushing down on the bridge of her nose to stop the cold from shooting to her head. Ilya copied her, packing his cheeks, then choked and spat out the ice, clutching at the sides of his head. Oh, my brain! Despite everything, Theo grinned.
Out of the water if you can find us a piece of bark.
Here, take my knife. Theo unplaited her hair. Her hands felt warmer. Hope, she knew, can control body temperature as much as weather. She rubbed the pin bottom to top, counting under her breath. 50, Mama had said. She pictured herself and the wolves bursting into the jail, her mother's arm sweeping her up. Her hands moved faster. Ilya came running through the woods carrying a lump of bark carefully in both hands, as if it might escape. Theo sliced off a piece the size of a postage stamp and slid the needle through it. She dropped the needle and bark into the bowl. It spun in the water, first clockwise, then anti-clockwise. Then it came to a halt.
There, said Theo. The sharp end points north. St. Petersburg. Ilya, let's go. Do you know, I've never even smelled a city. Would it be best to take it in turns on my skis? Or one ski each?
No, I don't know if he'll let me, but if he will, I'm going to ride Black. There was awe in his voice. Theo approached Black carefully. It had been one thing in the blur of last night to make a wolf into a horse, but a very different thing in the sharp light of a winter morning. How do you ask a wolf if you may ride on his back? She licked her fingers and rubbed the fur behind his ears. She had discovered years ago that actually licking the wolves led to fur balls, and whispered calmly words into his ear. Very slowly, she stretched her leg over Black until she was standing astride his back. She lowered herself to sit. She held her breath and lifted her feet off the ground. Black barely seemed to feel her weight. He twitched his ears and ran a few steps, circling Ilya. It felt very strange to ride a wolf. Not blunt, like a horse, but angular. It was like riding on leather and springs. There was immense power under the skin and fur. She had always known Black was strong, but she had never felt it so vividly. She leaned over his neck and stroked his nose. Black licked her knuckles.
I'm going to take that as a yes.
Theo was working out where best to put her feet when she saw that Ilya was hovering awkwardly, apparently trying to attract her attention. To hover in the snow is different from hovering on summer earth. It requires more movement around the feet and knees. Ilya looked like he was line dancing on the spot.
What is it? Can I ride one of the wolves? We'd be so much faster.
Theo looked at White, at Grey.
I don't know. You could, physically. Grey's almost as strong as Black, but I don't know if she'll let you.
All right. Ilya approached Grey.
Here, wolf. Here, wolfie, wolfie. Nice wolf. Don't do that, said Theo sharply. What? If you talk to her like she's an idiot, she'll definitely eat you. Just hold out your hand, and if she doesn't snap it, you could try touching her back.
Grey, always the most snappish of the wolves, watched with stern eyes. She ignored the outstretched hand, but equally, when Ilya swung his leg with surprising grace over her back, she did not flinch. Instead, she took off, barely giving time for Ilya to snatch up his skis under one arm. They heard a whoop and then a yelp and the sound of a snowy branch hitting an unprepared face. Theo grinned. She should have told him to duck. She leaned, wobbling, across Black's head to kiss White's nose. She settled the pup between her legs and pointed out north to her best friend.
That way! Journey towards Mama!
To the three men in grey coats and golden buttons just cresting the hill, the pantomime was a strange one. The speck of green merged with the grey, and the black with the flash of red as they shot off toward the north.